everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take the roll, please.
O'Connor.
Here.
Morissette.
Here.
Alms is excused. DeZiel.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
Atkins Hoggett.
Here.
Hall.
Here.
All right, we have a Lifesaver Award tonight to be presented by St. Croix EMS. Joe?
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a life-saving award to two individuals that we wanted to honor. It was in regards to a car crash that St. Croix EMS, the fire department, police department responded to. So first of all, I've spoken with most of you, but I'm Joe Elkin. I'm your interim EMS chief. So I just wanted to make that introduction. But on July 24th, St. Croix EMS and other emergency services from the city of Hudson responded to a motorcycle crash on Carmichael Road. The driver of the motorcycle, Michael Seidling, had been hit by another vehicle and sustained severe injuries. One of the first people on the scene was Andy, or Andrew, and I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Hudson. All right. Sorry, Andy. But he was on his way to take his kids somewhere. He is just an everyday citizen driving by and saw that there was a need for emergency assistance. So he applied a makeshift tourniquet and basically controlled the bleeding of the victim's leg, which was ultimately amputated. The first officer on scene, Zach Schultz, quickly applied a commercially made tourniquet and rendered aid until the paramedics and rest of EMS arrived. There were several other people that assisted with Michael's care that day, but I'm proud to recognize the heroic efforts of Andrew and Zach. St. Croix EMS, in conjunction with Regions Hospital, present both of you with life-saving awards for your efforts. I'm also presenting both of you with an EMS challenge coin. For those of you that aren't familiar with the tradition of a challenge coin, long military history traditionally given out for outstanding service and performance of duty. So to that end, I would be honored if they would accept our coin and these certificates from Regions Hospital as appreciation. Officer Schultz had a family emergency, so Chief Willems just informed me he couldn't make it today. But I will look at the life-saving award here for Andy, right? I know when we talk on the phone, you said So here's a life-saving award from Regions Hospital. I'll stand closer to the podium here. For exceptional and professional effort resulting in the preservation of life, Regions Hospital EMS presents you with this life-saving award for actions exemplifying compassionate care and the preservation of life. So I present you with this certificate with a challenge coin that has the logo of St. Croix EMS on it. Shake your hand while I do that. Thank you. And the victim of the motorcycle crash is also here because he wanted to thank both Andy and the officer. And again, the officer's not here, but Mike's right here. So after the incident, I understood that these two have been in contact. They didn't know each other necessarily before this crash, and certainly that brought them together. So we're really proud that we could have been part of that. One of the paramedics that was on duty that day, Jen Kerner, is here somewhere. Maybe probably in the hallway because it was crowded when we walked in. Jen Kerner's in the back. She was the paramedic that was on scene that day also. So we want to recognize our own staff as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe, and thank you, Andy. Nice job. We have a new city clerk on staff now.
So I'd like to introduce Jennifer Rogers, who will go by Jen or Jenny. She'll answer to either. Maybe I'll wait till the crowd clears out a minute here. Jen comes to us from City of River Falls. She was a deputy clerk down there. Prior to that, she was the city clerk in Whittier, Alaska. So we're glad to have her. I'm really glad to have her here, but we're all very glad to have her here. She jumped right in today and started working on entering new registrations. So she's jumped right in and started to help. So we look forward to having her here for a very long time. So.
Did she sign that 30-year?
Welcome, Jen. Good to have you on board.
Glad to be here.
Excellent. Next, we have a public hearing on amendment to the Municipal Code, Chapter 255, zoning, Section 255-48, Sub H, and Section 255-57, Sub E, to reduce the number of required parking stalls per multifamily unit and to allow for parking in the front setback. Mike, are you going to?
It's a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. So we have. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? Anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? Anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this? Well, we've got a lot of attorneys and nobody's saying anything.
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing is closed. Discussion and possible action on ordinance 19-18 amending Municipal Code Chapter 255, Section 255-48 zoning sub H and Section 255-57 sub B or E rather to reduce the number of required parking stalls per multifamily unit and to allow for parking in the front setback. Mike.
Thank you. So, as we've been dealing with a lot of our growth challenges lately, one of the things that's come up over and over again as it pertains to multifamily housing is how restrictive our current parking regulations are for multifamily buildings and structures, and that requires 3 parking stalls for each dwelling unit. We conducted some of our own research and looked at our neighboring communities to see what they were doing on the parking front for multifamily. We found that it usually ranged anywhere from 1.5, sometimes less, but 1.5 to 2. Plan Commission considered the item and made a recommendation at their last meeting, well, before the one this evening, to go with an option that says 2 per unit with 1 additional space for each bedroom thereafter. So if you had a 2-bedroom apartment, you'd have to have 2 stalls. Obviously, one has to be a garage. But if you have a 3-bedroom, you have to provide an additional stall. So 3 bedrooms would be 3 stalls, 4 bedrooms, 4 stalls, and onwards from there. So that's the first component. The second one is the parking in the front setback. We currently do not provide for parking allowances in the front yard setback, which is extremely restrictive depending upon how much the setback is, which can be anywhere from usually 30 to 40 feet. So when you take away that ability to park in that area, obviously there's additional restrictions in place for setback from the right-of-way line, 10 or 15 feet generally. But when you can't...
I'm having trouble hearing you, sorry. With
Scott? Scott.
Could you maybe ask them to... Thank you.
Can you say about the setback again? I missed that.
So currently you can't parking off-street parking for a multifamily, for an apartment use in the front yard building setback.
Okay.
Which is generally, 30, 40 feet. I think it's 40 feet in most high-density residential districts.
Okay.
That can be extremely burdensome, obviously, because then you're starting parking 40 yards or 40 feet past that, and then you're, having to build something. So, again, that was the Plan Commission's recommendation, is to move forward with that hybrid approach to the 2-bedroom or 2 stalls per unit plus 1 additional space for each bedroom after 2, and then to allow for parking in the front setback.
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Got a motion second to suspend. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Zeal?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Atkins, Hoggett?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to adopt ordinance 19-18.
Second.
Got a motion and second to adopt. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mike, can you talk about the original idea behind the setback was to what? What's the thinking on that?
It's hard to say. It was from, the 1993 zoning code. Why it was done like that, I'm not sure. It's different than what we analyzed from our peers.
Right.
So maybe the intent was to get parking in the rear more.
Okay.
But I hate to venture to guess what specifically was the reasoning behind that.
Okay.
My thought on this is we just approved an apartment building
complex on Cooley Road
No, we
with
didn't.
this beautiful,
We didn't approve anything. Zoning.
we approved the zoning, but with this beautiful picture of the front of the building and the grass in front and no parking, no cars parked there. And now we're going to just change that. So what it is how it's going to look. I guess I appreciate the value of the land that would save.
Sure. To require the setback, maintain the building setback?
Yeah, it's just not a comfortable
an
position.
aesthetic thing?
It's an aesthetic thing versus the value of the land and ability to create multi-family units, which we want.
Mm-hmm.
This passed out of Plan Commission unanimously too, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So then the apartment buildings would look more like an office building as far as the parking in front. So the current law or ordinance says that they can't park in front of the building, right?
Well, they can. It's a setback further.
Okay.
Yep. And we hear that time and again as a very large encumbrance to people being able to develop multifamily properties.
Okay.
So Mike, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Is big picture just that with these changes, there'll be more flexibility in designing and building the multi-housing units?
Yeah, it'll provide more flexibility. Okay. Yeah.
I think a related issue that I see is we have some areas where we have two-family residences, and they're parking elsewhere. They're not parking on they're parking on the sides of roads that are not designed for parking. So it's something's a little out of whack about that. I think we're getting more. The trend is to have more cars within a unit as kids come back home, and they bring their car with them. And all of a sudden, there are 4 cars or 6 cars in a two-family unit, which we only require 2 spaces. So it's and now they're parking on streets where they're not supposed to be because they can't park within their own development. So it's something's.
Is that true, Mike? That's not what we're talking about.
It isn't what we're talking about, but it's it's a related concern. Is how many cars are there in a 2-bedroom apartment? That's
I think it varies by circumstance. I think this gets us. My recommendation, along with Plan Commission, would be that this gets us more in line with what our peers currently have. I mean, you're seeing a trend in zoning code to go further down in parking provided. There are some studies out there where they don't provide any parking per multifamily unit. Also, they go 0.5, 1, 1.5 per unit. And again, as we looked at this was a logical thing, and hearing it a number of times in the time that I've been here, which is a relatively short amount of time, that, hey, this is a huge barrier for our ability to develop multifamily units here. I think it's difficult, dependent upon a community where you're in, to say, one family will have more cars than other, because some will have less, some will have more, and then you try to the averages, right? So, I was confident, obviously, making the recommendation to Plan Commission to go to the 2, and again, I would support their recommendation.
So what, I mean, are any other concerns here? Obviously, the two were, the reduction, I think, is important, and there's a lot that's happening with parking right now. We keep talking about this. Fewer and fewer people, as younger people in particular, driving. You don't want to be driving. We're going to be into the driverless car thing here pretty soon. So, and realistically, I mean, this is for the most part new development. And I hadn't thought about the Cooley Road thing, but I guess I was thinking more some of the properties that we have either just recently annexed or looking to annex.
Oh, yeah, and other interior redevelopment projects I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Downtown I'm seeing,
coming up. Yeah.
Obviously, the discussion later on at the St. Croix Meadows site has some multifamily components to it.
Sure. All right. Any further discussion?
Could you just clarify for me? Maybe I'm reading something wrong, but for the single family, that's just a house, right?
Correct.
So every new house built in Hudson needs to have a garage?
One space has at least a single, covered garage. Yep. So you have two. You have to provide two per house, effectively. So if you build a new house, it has to have at least 2 parking stalls on site.
Yeah.
One has to be a garage.
Aren't there many properties in Hudson, particularly downtown, that have no garage at all right now?
Oh, sure. Yep.
So if someone was to redo a house, now they need to add a garage?
I think there would have to be a threshold, in terms of what type of substantial improvement that would be. There might be space limitations on a lot.
Right, I'm just thinking, particularly downtown in the district that I represent, that might create a burden on some of these homes that obviously might need to be updated and remodeled extensively, but yet still there's not an opportunity to have a garage.
And I would say that, that code section for the 2 has existed for, at least since 1993 for the 2. We haven't had I haven't experienced that issue, but I also understand that, okay, if you have a non-conforming lot that doesn't provide for enough setback to put a stall or put a garage on your lot, you can't do it. So it's an existing non-conformity that you deal with, and you can't make them provide something that they can't physically provide on site.
Okay.
You think of it, and in some of those kind of scenarios, I know a lot of lots downtown in your district that would be, you put a single car garage in there, and that's about the entire width of the property, right? So, common sense too. We try to be, there's only so much you can do.
Right, but if it's ordinance, it's ordinance,
yeah,
right?
Yep, but we wouldn't make them in that scenario, understanding that the constraints that they're in, build a parking garage or a.
So they'd be grandfathered in, but there's nowhere in writing that it actually is grandfathered in.
Well, I'm guessing that the parking requirements were probably adopted after construction of the home, so that laws typically apply prospectively, not retroactively.
Yep.
So even if they're remodeling the interior, if we're talking a dwelling unit, they're not adding space or units. They're just remodeling an existing structure. I don't think the parking requirements would apply, because the structure is already there.
There's specific code discussion on existing non-conforming structures, which is what and there's existing non-conforming properties too. And generally, a lot of times there are both those things in a downtown scenario, and and that's it is what it is, and you can't retroactively make them comply with existing code.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Public hearing on proposed amendment to the Municipal Code, Chapter 255, zoning to include high-tech manufacturing, technology, and research-based businesses in the City of Hudson zoning code. Is there anybody here that would like to comment? Anybody that would like to comment? Anybody that would like to comment?
Move to close.
Second.
Got a motion second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Hearing is closed. Discussion and possible action on ordinance 20-18 amending Municipal Code Chapter 255 zoning to include high-tech manufacturing, technology, and research-based businesses in the City of Hudson zoning code.
And this is another thing that's come into light as we look at development, both in St. Croix Meadows as well as the business park. Is you're seeing a lot of communities go to like a campus-style corporate function, right? So research-based, scientific, high-tech processes. Well, our code doesn't even contemplate. It just says manufacturing or industrial uses. It doesn't specify currently what a high-tech or medical device type manufacturing process is. Understanding that those are different than, you know, if somebody's got a foundry in town, right? So this language was set up, actually Cedar Corp, who is with us tonight to help on the St. Croix Meadows project as well, drafted this ordinance. It looks similar to, I believe, Menominey's. And what it does is it provides for a certificate of compliance. So when somebody comes in with development plans, we look at, okay, what are they trying to do out there, or what do they want to produce, manufacture? Is it high tech? Does it meet the intent of that ordinance? And then the Common Council or the Plan Commission, and then ultimately the Common Council will say yes, you know, that's in line with a high tech research-based institution, and then it would be issued that certificate of compliance. It's a scenario that our code didn't contemplate.
I'll move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to suspend. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Atkins Hyatt?
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to adopt 20-18.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adopt. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Next, comments and suggestions from citizens present. Is there anybody here that would like to make a comment? Anybody like to make a comment? Anybody like to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Discussion and possible action on consent agenda items.
To approve the regular meeting minutes of August 6th, 2018, and the special meeting minutes of August 13th, 2018. To approve claims in the amount of $381,202.72. Detailed information is available in the clerk's office. Contingent upon payment of any outstanding debt owed to the city and successful completion of a background check, approve the issuance of 3 regular operators licenses to Devin Kilmer, Elliot McMahon, and Allison Turner for the period of August 21st, 2018 to June 30th, 2020. Erect a speed limit sign on O'Neill Road near West Canyon Drive, revisit the issue in 6 months, and collect additional speed data after the sign is erected. Approve barricading 3rd Street between Orange Street and St. Croix Street on October 31st for Halloween. Approve a yield to pedestrians paint on pavement, erect pedestrian crossing signs, and paint the crosswalks with block striping on Carmichael Road south of Oak Ridge Circle. To approve the 2019 Common Council meeting schedule. Place on file the Hudson Water Utility Report for the first half of 2018. Place on file the minutes of the August 14th, 2018 Public Utilities Commission meeting. Approve the letter of engagement with SEH to prepare a legal description for Tax Incremental District Number 6. Approve a letter of engagement with SEH to prepare a list of potential transportation improvement options to consider as part of WISDOT Highway 35 2nd Street project in 2021. And approve the certified survey map at 2239, 2241 Namacoggin Street submitted by Preferred Builders, Inc.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
DeZiel?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett?
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Consent agenda is approved. Discussion and possible action on acceptance of funds from the Hudson Dog Owners Association for the construction of Phase 2 of the Hudson Dog Park at Grandview Park.
I believe Ann Wasmond is here to discuss that.
Yeah. Hi, good evening, everybody.
Hey.
We would like to formally donate an additional $10,000 to the city of Hudson for construction of Phase 2. So if you recall, or if you're familiar, Phase 2 was part of the original vision and plan for the Hudson Dog Park. We didn't have enough funds last year to make that happen, but we've now raised an additional $10,000, and we're hoping for Phase 2 to happen this fall, if possible. And I believe you have that in your packet, the map that does show that. One item that was an error was the estimate. A most recent estimate was a total of $11,900, and that was for a 4-foot high fence, which we think would be a better option than a 6-foot high fence for the small dogs. So, yes.
Okay.
So the
Excellent.
next step in the process will, assuming you accept this, would be we'd go out and get bids and find out what is, and then if there was a difference between the 10,000 and the actual cost, then between Public Works and the dog owners group, we would figure out where to find that funding. So
Exactly.
I'll move to accept the donation.
Second.
Motion second to accept. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, everyone.
Discussion possible action on application received for available Class B reserve license Cinema Entertainment Corp.
as I noted in my memo, after the last license was surrendered in June, we followed our ordinance posted in the newspaper as required. We actually had two individuals that had applied, or two groups that had applied for it. One was a Cinema Entertainment Group, one was Ragma Inc., which is Keith's Cafe, but they notified me on Friday that they've chosen not to proceed with it. So the only one that you can consider tonight then would be Cinema Entertainment Corp. And I did note on there, another one did come in late last week. But, that's completely your call how you want to handle this, whether you want to grant one tonight or, correct, Catherine?
Yeah, that application is still within the publication
Right,
period.
it has not been published
So you can't do
yet, so.
anything on that. And there is a notice period that they theoretically could have submitted an application during that time, but they didn't.
Yeah, in Cinema, they didn't do it within the...
Did it within the time period. So it's up to, it's up to the council whether you
Tony
want to
Tillemans
postpone
from
it.
Cinema Entertainment is here if you have any questions on the application or...
I'll move we approve, but I'd like to ask a couple questions as well.
Got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion, a second. Tony, would you like to come up, please?
At what point are you going to install what you have sent us as far as dispensing the beer or wine or whatever?
Well, assuming we get approval, we have to start to order the equipment and get a final design kind of how that equipment's going to fit into our existing concession area, and if we have to modify that. We also have to send our manager to training along with some other employees, which we haven't done yet because we wanted to know this. Our goal would be, I think that we have some other projects going, but we would assign someone to do this, and I would expect over the next 2 months we would be ready to be open.
Okay.
Tony, how much are you paying property taxes per year?
It's 130,000 or 133, including personal property this last year.
How many people do you employ?
We employ about 35 people, not including cleaners.
Okay. How many additional staff would you need for this?
Well, probably 2 or 3 people that are a little more experienced at what we're trying to do. But, it's really, we're looking to incorporate it kind of into the business versus having it be really a separate business. So what we're looking to do is just offer another amenity for customers. So it's not, we don't want to lose customers. Customers are valuable. We do see a fair amount of customers a year. We do about 350,000 people. Those aren't obviously just from the city of Hudson, so we think we bring, we're a fairly strong regional draw, we believe. And we don't want to, the theaters on the other side of the river now are pretty much all offering alcohol. And we don't want to lose customers for that reason.
How much did you spend on your renovation?
With this last reseeding program and the construction, we did about $1.5 million.
So you're invested.
What's that?
You're invested into the community.
Yeah, well, original building was significantly more than that, obviously, than when we built in 2007. We've been in Hudson since 1990, and we didn't always have this building here. We've kind of, evolved, and when we first came in 1990, the racetrack was pretty popular. Land was very expensive. We had a difficult time really finding a spot, so we went into a little strip center. We ended up expanding that, and that really wasn't serving the market properly. So in 2007, 2008, we bought the land we're on now, and then we constructed what we thought was a theater that wouldn't need any construction for quite a while. And then the luxury seating, with the electric seats came in, and we moved forward with doing that. And this, I guess, is just, obviously this investment isn't nearly as much as that, but it's, again, we need to provide amenities that keep our customers coming to our building.
What hours would this bar be open from?
Well, we probably would make it, obviously, kind of predicated on business a little bit and who's available to serve. We just opened a similar situation in Andover, and we're running there from about noon to 10 or noon to 8 on Sunday maybe, but we probably only serve hard liquor because we need more of a bartender to do drinks from like about 6 to 10.
Tony, I work with a lot of underage. I work with high school. I teach high school. So just what kind of provisions so that either employees of yourself or minors, in a sense, or below 21, sorry, who would be watching a movie would not have access to that? Like what kind of things you have to do at a movie theater that you might not have to do at like a restaurant or something?
Well, I mean, I guess it's obviously you have to be observant. So, I mean, everyone who comes in, who buys the actual liquor, we allow 2 drinks for a customer at a time. They have to present an ID. We run that through a scanner so that we know, they're good to go. Those customers, I mean, again, in Andover, we haven't had real issues at all with underage. I mean, part of it is it's just expensive. So, I mean, we're not going to be the cheap price point for drinking. As far as when they bring it into the auditorium, it's obviously illegal for someone to give a drink to somebody else. Okay. But we also obviously have ushers and people that can attend that. And if someone is caught doing that, I mean, we'll just turn them over to the police because, I mean, that's not the atmosphere we want. I mean, our typical customer, if they do buy a drink, it's 1 drink. I mean, people aren't there to consume multiple drinks because they buy a drink when they first come in, if they're going to buy one, and they don't tend to come back out because you're in the movie and you just don't leave. So it's an alternative for someone who would rather, I mean, originally we thought we'd just do maybe beer and wine, which we're not really entitled to do under the licensing, but we also have found that liquor is about 35% of your sales. So when you do alcohol, about 55% is beer, 35% is liquor, and about 15% of the drinks is wine. And now everyone will look at it and say, well, I'd rather, a lot of people, I'd rather have a glass of wine. And that's what they think everyone wants, but that's not what, people want a little bit of variety.
That wasn't quite 100, was it $30, 30% for popcorn?
It's 105 per person.
Well, we don't want to take away popcorn sales.
Got a good markup.
So, well, we appreciate being in the, this is an important community to us. It's actually, we own, of the 20 theaters we own, this is our most significant theater. So it's one that we value a lot.
Chief Willems, Chief, do you have any enforcement concerns? I see your head going that way, so that's no, you don't? Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? This is, I don't know, 3rd time, Tony?
No, year and a half ago.
Second time? I'm an advocate for the movie theater. I don't know anybody over there. I have no personal connection with anybody there. But to me, we've got a great asset to the community, and it's one of one. And all of their competition is doing the same thing. And I think it's worthwhile to utilize this. Obviously, we have a great citizen here, corporate citizen in our community that's paying a lot in taxes, employing our kids, I think, in a very safe environment. And to me, that's important. So I certainly am an advocate of this. If I had an opportunity to vote, I would definitely vote in support of this. And I hope that everybody else here would do the same.
I'd like to follow Randy's question on timing. You talked about the things that you have to do. When do you think you would be
Well, we'll start
this
tomorrow.
business.
So we'll start planning tomorrow. We'll hire a company to, I mean, we don't have someone in staff that comes in and says, okay, this is what you need, this is the cabinet you should have here, this is what you buy here, this,
Right.
So we'll hire that person tomorrow or this weekend. And it won't take long. I mean, it's not
We're
it's
talking
not like
a couple
it's,
months here?
I would say a couple months.
They have 90 days from the issuance to
Yeah.
Under our
We just went
startup
down
of
this road so many
business.
times.
A big part of our business is the holidays. I mean, we'd want to be ready by Thanksgiving. So, and we want to do some training. But again, we can't do a lot with, we've been through this process and I'd hoped we're going to be successful last time and it didn't work that way. But
I'd like to speak briefly also to the whole license issue. We do have another license downtown at Stone Tap that it's...
Well, they have about 90 days, so they have till October 1st to either have someone come in and propose to do something with it, which you've done in the past, or the council then will need to start whatever process we do to get that license back. We did get our population estimate. We won't hit it this year to get another one, but I'm pretty sure we will in next year in October. So we will, because we'll hit the next population threshold based on the growth we've seen, the state estimate. So we'll be over 14,000 in 2019. So in October of next year, we should have another one available.
So there is one that is going to be, there's one available, I guess, essentially right now, depending upon what happens at Stone Tap. If nothing happens at Stone Tap in the next couple months, that license would be available for anybody else that comes in to apply for that license. In addition, I've had conversations with Shannon Zimmerman, our assemblyman, and he said he's working hard to get us additional licenses. He understands the problems that we face over here relative to our growth, and he thinks that to some extent is very unique throughout the state, and thinks that he can make the case to get this done. And I will add this, that when Governor Walker was here for the ceremony awarding the grant for the dog track, unsolicited, he turned to me and said, we're going to get you guys more liquor licenses over here. So
I asked him.
yeah,
I asked him that, and he was very open to it.
yeah.
Because he's done it elsewhere in the state.
So we're working on it. We've got, we're going to have more licenses here. I think that I really would like to see this our movie theater, our, like I say, one of one, be able to compete with folks across the border.
Can someone who was here back when he applied last time speak to the rationale that went into not approving it the last
They
time?
gave it to someone else.
It went to
There
the,
were three.
Yeah.
There were four applicants.
There were four applicants.
four
at that
applicants.
time.
For one license.
It went
Okay.
to the one up by the bowling alley.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thank you very much. Yep. Good luck with that. Let's see, discussion and possible action on repainting crosswalks at Montcroix and Hazelcrest, and possible no parking on the north side of Montcroix near Anderson Park.
Yeah, that came from me as a constituent, reached out to me, wanted it kind of because of the newfound pickleball court up there. It's busy up there, and there's some safety issues with the parking up there. So we would like to talk about it here, if we could either obviously restripe everything, make sure it looks good, put up warning flags or whatnot, but there's also a suggestion of no parking on that north side of Mount Croix. So it would force them to park on the side of Anderson Park. And I don't really have an issue with it. I don't think, Chief, did you have an issue with that at all?
No, there's no issue with that, but it is poorly marked up there. It's pretty dangerous up there, especially in the mid-morning time of the day. There are a lot of people up there.
So I guess if, I would move that we do such that, repaint, put a crosswalk warning flag up there and no parking on the north side of Mount Croix. That's my motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Do you want to specify between which intersections for no parking?
Well, if it would, then it would go from
Mount Craig,
River
Hazel
Ridge
Crest.
Road.
River Ridge Road east to what?
Hazel Court.
What's that?
Or there's just a,
There's a driveway
there's a
right there.
crosswalk in there.
There's a map right behind you.
Okay, so
There's another road.
this is the park.
I think
So
we
we're
need to
talking
go all the way
about-
Down.
I don't think we need to go all the way, yeah, so the Hazel Court all the way up to River Ridge on the north side,
So from Hazel Court. to
on the
River
west
Ridge.
side of Hazel Court.
Okay. All right, I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Does that just push them around to where they're surrounding the park more?
I don't think there's no parking allowed on River Ridge.
Okay. So where do they park then?
They'll have to go on to the south side of
There's
Mount Croix.
the last time I was up there, they were parked on the east side of River Ridge, where it borders the park. They were parked along River Ridge, kind of off the road in the ditch, and then onto. And I didn't see any no parking signs
Aren't
up
those
there.
construction workers that have permit right now? They're construction guys.
Not when I was
Could
up
be
there.
wrong, so,
Court was full of people. There were probably 15 cars up there.
okay.
You're just trying to figure it out.
Would we need to always have it no parking, or is pickleball not played in the winter, is it?
I don't know.
Not yet.
Might be. Ice pickleball.
I didn't know if there was a smaller
Well, there's not
section
gonna
of
be,
time.
there's not gonna be demand, there's not gonna be demand for the parking spaces in the winter, probably.
We can come back in 6 months at public safety and review it,
Okay,
and I'll put that into the motion.
all right. I'll second
Review after
that.
6 months at public safety.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody good? Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Thanks, Chief. Discussion possible action on final development plans for Phase 1 amended Stadium, St. Croix Stadium Holdings LLC.
All right, so the next three items are all connected. And heretofore, we're no longer calling it the old dog track, so.
That's going to take a while.
Right, I know, I had to catch myself often, but I'm joined by Wendy Sander here with Cedar Corp, who helped us do all of the review and put this package together so that it's easy to understand, and she did a great job earlier tonight explaining one component of this to the Plan Commission, the amended CUP piece. I think that the most important thing to point out before I turn it over to Wendy is the stadium is the only, the physical stadium itself is the only thing that hasn't changed at all from the original plan. Some of the things are very close. In fact, a lot of the road alignments are very close, parking, uses. But ultimately, we arrived a few months ago after the property did change hands and now has a new owner that, we had to go back through the whole process again. And that's how we've approached it. So this is the first step of that. Again, the ballpark, the stadium, and the seating itself is the same. The hope is that, they can move forward under the old conditional use permit that was approved to get started on the field itself. And to do that, obviously, the property needs to change hands, so that's why you see the CSM and the access easement in there, and you'll see a CSM agreement that was worked on a lot last Friday to get that to the point where it is today. But before I go on too long, I'll turn it over to Wendy to give the.
I can go on long too.
No, you're good.
Okay. Maybe I can just give you just a real brief how this process is going to go. It kind of encompasses C, D, and E, and a lot of your future meetings, I'm going to guess. And you did a lot of this process last year, but you're redoing a lot of it. The property has been rezoned to the planned commercial district, so the PCD 1, it already is zoned that, but now they need to get through the process to get the conditional use permit and into their final development plans to get building permits. And so the things that they need to do right now are they need to come back for their preliminary master plan and their CUP. Again, they had that before, but it has changed significantly, and your code does require any significant changes or major changes to come back to you. And then they will need to come with a final master plan, CUP, for that whole area, which is more exact. Where are the buildings going to be? Exactly where are the roads? Where is the parking? All of those aspects of it. They also need to then come, and will be done in phases, but they do need to come in and get a concept development plan. That's under your 255-85 under your code. That is to get to the building, their building plans, and to give you more exact on each building. And so they'll come in with a concept development plan, and then they'll come in with a final development plan. And the one other step then in there is also on the agenda tonight is certified survey map, but they will also be bringing forward in the future a preliminary plat. They had brought a preliminary plat previously, but that is now changing just because of where lot configurations are, so they will have to redo that portion. But they need to make some sales of some of the land right now, and that's why the certified survey maps are coming before you. But let's just talk on C on the St. Croix Stadium holdings. That is the ball field portion, and again, it is the only piece that really hasn't, well, this piece has not changed at all. So it is operating under the approvals that you had last year. It was completed previously with Hudson Gateway LLC, and they have changed the ownership to St. Croix Stadium Holdings LLC. And just a note, the developers are here this evening and their engineers, so if you do have some more specific questions or something, they would be available to answer those for you. So on the ball field tonight, they did have a concept development plan last year approved, and they really just needed to do their final development plan. However, your code does require that after 1 year, they have to start that concept development plan over, and that's the process you're at tonight. They're running the concept development plan and their final development plan together in order to receive basically their building approval through your building inspection department. Plan Commission has reviewed this, and they did make recommendation. You do have a copy in the staff report in your packet. They had 5 conditions that they recommended approval on. The first 4 basically sent back to staff for review to just check over the ownership and their financial capability and development experience, to look through their plan schedule, because previously they were to start the ball field on a certain date and move forward, and that staff goes through, checks everything in their building plans that are in your packet to make sure that they follow your codes. The 5th item was to make a legal lot of record, and that CSM is coming up on your next agenda item. And that is so that there is a parcel for this property to be sold to. And we'll get into that when we get into that agenda item. Also in your packet then for this final development plan is some site work, but more importantly what this ball field portion will look like. Now, in future phases, they will be bringing forth more parts and pieces to this, and you will have development agreements that will cover quite a few items related to this, including their parking, their roads, their utilities, those kind of things. So this is really just the ball field. It doesn't include right now the clubhouse or those portions that you will be seeing in the future. Their goal is to get started so that they can be playing ball next summer, and so they need to get moving on a portion of this, and thus this part of the plan did not change, and so they're bringing forth this so they can get their footing and foundation permits going.
I need to make a comment.
No problem.
Just to be clear that one of the conditions of the CSM approval is that no building permits or related permits will be issued until the public road is constructed and the public, well, until we have an agreement satisfactory to the city regarding construction of those, the public road and the public utilities. So even though you're improving the final development plans, they will not be able to, assuming you approve the CSM subject to that agreement, they have agreed not to get any permits until we have an agreement regarding building the public road and the utilities.
The concern was getting access to that property. You can put up a ball field, but we can't get to it.
Yeah, and creating lots, we need to know that there's going to be public roads and so forth.
I'll move.
Go ahead.
I'll move we approve the certified survey map.
We're doing the
Well, we're
development
not-
plans first.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Oh, we're on C?
Yes.
Oop, you're on
C.
C.
I move that.
Got a motion, a second for approval. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on a certified survey map, CSM agreement, utility and access easement, drainage and utility easement, and stormwater drainage easement for St. Croix Meadows redevelopment, St. Croix Meadows LLC.
Okay, before you, you have two CSMs, one that show lots 1 and 2, and one that shows lot 3 and 4. 1 and 2 are a corporate user on the west side of Brecken, and the proposed Brecken. And the baseball stadium sits on lot 3, and there is a proposed restaurant facility shown on lot 4. It was originally sent out, they've adjusted some lines, and we have asked that they put all the existing easements, because you do have drainage and utility easements crossing all over on that property. So they have put those on the CSMs. Our staff has reviewed those CSMs for clerical and typical items that need to be on your certified survey maps. And we have reviewed those. Planning Commission did recommend moving forward with that. There's several other items with that agenda item, as you'll see, and Kathy will probably want to jump in on some of this, but she alluded to the agreement for the certified survey map. We're requesting an agreement that it looks long, but it's basically just saying that they're agreeing not to start this construction until they do come up with an agreement for public street, public utilities to serve this site. And there are several agreements that you'll see also in your packet that go with these certified survey maps. They relate to drainage and utilities. So there's a drainage and utility easement that would be a public drainage, storm sewer, and public utilities that sits on the west side and covers portions of lots 1 and 2 for the corporate user. And then there is a, switch over to a stormwater drainage easement that again is a public easement that would put drainage, basically the drainage ponds, they're kind of on the east portions of lot 1 and 2. And then you'll see in your packet also there is what's called a declaration for access and utility easement. This is for the private drive portion that sits just to the east of lots 1 and 2. Once, as I mentioned before, they'll be bringing in a preliminary plat and eventually a final plat for the subdivision of this property. At that point, it is our understanding that that road will become public. But in the interim, they need an access and utility easement. Lots 3 and 4 are not sitting on public right-of-way right now, and they're out in the middle of nowhere, basically. So you do require, and as most communities do, you either need public right-of-way touching those lots, or you need some kind of private access to them, and that is what this declaration would do for you. Kathy, did I miss anything in that?
No, it's just a little different having the CSM agreement. It will be recorded against the property so that if it will run with the property, that there will be no building permits or related permits issued until there's an agreement regarding construction of the public road and public utilities for those lots, the 4 lots on the CSM.
And we believe that development agreement will be coming within the next month. Mm-hmm. So we think that'll be a short term, but we want to make sure. And again, we did, there were just some clerical errors and those kind of things on the CSMs. We've been working with their surveyor directly to get those fixed up so the final CSM for your signature will be proper.
Move to approve the certified survey map. Second.
Got a motion, second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on amended preliminary master plan conditional use permit for planned commercial development of the St. Croix Meadows redevelopment site, St. Croix Meadows LLC.
Can I just go back for 1 minute? That motion included, I assume, everything else on that agenda item, the utility easements, the CSM agreement and so forth. Just want to make it clear.
I'm sure that's what it was.
The
Good.
minutes will so reflect.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so your preliminary master plan CUP, again, is amended. You did approve this in the past, but it has changed. So the building sites and locations have been altered. The actual types of buildings have been altered. Locations, parking lots have changed. There's some more substantial changes to the west side of the proposed Brecken Drive. That is where the corporate user is. There was, I believe, 5 buildings, and now it's down to basically 2 buildings, much larger. Again, same acreage, the 130-acre site, but they had some cross easements where the ball field was going to use portions of the parking on the corporate user, and we do not believe that is going to happen at this time. So there's been some changes. Multifamily has changed. There was 130 units proposed, and now there's 200 units proposed on the multifamily. So there has been, again, some significant changes, and that's why we requested that they do bring this forward to you again for a look. The roads haven't changed significantly. They're a little bit different, but they're pretty close to the same location. But it's more the uses and where those buildings and how they sit that has changed. Obviously, the site is now flat. The buildings have all been demolished, so that's a little different than the last time you saw it also. It did go to Plan Commission. There was 9 items listed on the recommendation from Plan Commission, and they did add 2 during the meeting at 4 o'clock this evening. The additional item was that the CSM be approved, which we just did, and that WSB, who is the developer's engineer, update their memo to clarify some of the grades and the height of the multifamily. There was a concern with some of the residents in the area that they are allowed up to 60 feet for the buildings out there, and there were some concern on would they be able to see them off of Tower Road for those single-family homes that are out there. So they will clarify those, check those, double-check those grades, and clarify those with us so that they can move forward. This will be coming again for a final master plan, and there will be a lot more detail at that time.
I thought that, excuse me, I thought
Yes.
that motion also included the traffic study in regards to roundabouts.
Oh, I apologize. Yes. So in the conditions that were in here previously, we talked about your engineer, SEH, did have a number of items that need to be looked at. And so we want all of those items in their memo reviewed, and we called out a couple of them. One was updating the traffic impact study. And then we talked at Plan Commission then about some looks at the intersections along Carmichael there and how that's going to operate, and they are going to also add in looking at some roundabout options there to see if that would help. Carmichael, as we all know, is extremely busy, and they need to re-look at what are they adding, the multifamily, the ball field, the new corporate user, what's the change in the traffic impact there. So they're going to analyze that while we're doing that, so thank you. I apologize for not pointing that out.
We have a motion.
I'll move with the conditions laid out for the master plan, the CUP.
Got a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a motion, a second. Any further discussion?
Can you say more about the multifamily units? Like there was a change in that. Can you just do those numbers for me again? Sorry.
Yes, so last year when you looked at this, the approval was for, I believe, 130. Does that sound right, guys?
Yes.
Okay. Plus the senior, yes.
200.
And they're looking at 200 units in just that market rate multifamily housing now. So the number of units has gone up.
And that's is it a 3-story or what's the 5? A 5-story.
It says up to 5 stories. That's what they've been talking about. They don't know for sure. That will need to get clarified as they move into their master plan or their final master plan stage. Some of it is they're working with people to construct those now, and they're not quite sure how it's going to end up.
Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion and possible action on initiating a study of space needs for public works and space available in the public utilities facility.
So I had actually asked to put that on the agenda. Though the idea is, and I've toured that public utilities building, the new one that we have up on Livingston. So they have a lot of extra space. They have extra parking. They have extra meeting rooms. They have extra office space. They have a lot of extra space right there right now that's not being utilized. The idea is that Public Works, and I know we're still in the process of trying to assess between the various sites what they need for future building, but I know that Tom Zuli's talked about, we need a new Public Works building. So the idea is if we could, I don't know if we say commission or initiate or have the city look into some kind of a study or do some research to figure out what does Public Works needs in terms of, what do we need in terms of storage for, trucks and equipment and whatnot, and how much of that could be potentially stored at the Public Utilities building, and what would that involve? Would that involve perhaps, building some larger garages? I don't have all the answers, but I would like us to look into it as a city to sort of say, is there an option to use that Public Utilities space for some Public Works needs? And we don't need to make a decision on that tonight, but I'm thinking it would just be initiating someone on city staff to look into that, or if there's another person more qualified or something. I don't know how that would work, but the whole idea is, in my mind, it would be a potential huge savings for the city if we were able to do that in some capacity. It doesn't mean that perhaps we don't need to do something else with Public Works as well. I'm not excluding anything. But just the idea that let's get a handle on what we need. And we have a new Public Works director too, so I don't know if that's part of, maybe that could be the charge too or something. I don't know the timing and all this, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's a great potential we have, but we need to do more research on it. I'm probably not the one to do the research, but if there's somebody on the city staff that could do it, I'd be very appreciative.
You think that should go to Public Works Committee? For them to flush it out?
To start the process, yeah. Is that what you think? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's something you want to tackle?
Yeah, I would say we can put that on the agenda to discuss, but my first thought is that we would probably want to wait until we had the city engineer on board, whether it would help immensely with that project, and as opposed to
the applications are due at the end of the month, so you're probably looking early to mid-November.
This is probably, it's not a time-sensitive matter yet. It's something but we do need to start looking at it. We're going to start by just becoming familiar, the Public Works, with the different properties and the advantages and disadvantages and what we have to do. There's some things coming down the road. MS4 is going to affect some of those properties, maybe the costs to us. So
You think we need to wait for the engineer?
we can, if we either do that or we have one of our engineering companies do the work.
I was just, I guess.
We can do the analysis, take a quick look at the property, say, well, here are the pluses and minuses. Do we want to move ahead? Or do we, how do we design that, what that facility should look like?
Well, okay, I get that part. I was just thinking as far as usage needs right now, I would think you get Kip and the new Public Works Director together, and Tom has offered up some time of his own to come in and help out. I'd get those three people together and have them start working on it. That's the way I'd approach it, I guess.
Kip sent me an email with some concerns, and he said with the upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant possibly happening in 2020, there's the very real possibility that the storage garage currently located there will have to be demolished to make room for the upgrade. This would mean the current items, trucks, generators, vac truck, etc., would need to be housed at the utility center. We would have to construct outbuildings at the service center to house this equipment. Staff would need to report to the service center daily also, so I will need office space and staff space for the wastewater employees. This was the longer range plan when the commission first looked at this facility for purchase.
Okay, it's good info. Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I'd get those heads together.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good start.
Let them try to figure it out. start there. All right, and through the guidance of the Public Works Committee.
Yeah.
Everybody good on that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Discussion and possible action on recuperating the wheel tax by the city of Hudson for public works projects.
And I had asked also to put this on the agenda. One of my constituents contacted me probably a month and a half ago or something like that, in July it was. And there's apparently a wheel tax that Wisconsin DOT actually does for certain cities or counties. And St. Croix County is one of those counties. So you might know more about this than I do. But the idea is that cities can request or ask to recuperate the percentage of those wheels for use of that money to put into public works projects, for example, street projects or
Transportation projects.
Okay.
It's got to be transportation.
So I'm not an expert in this field, but I think what I'd like us to do is look into that. I did run it through my county board rep, and they ran it up their chain and sort of talked to their legal folks, and what they said, the answer basically was the city has to request it. So Hudson, City of Hudson, we'd have to basically request it. So I guess I'm not, without more information, I'm not comfortable to say, let's request it tonight. But what I'd like, again, is, and I guess being new at this, I'm not sure who the appropriate person is, but I would like some city staff to, again, look at that, or maybe Catherine or somebody, to see what that involves and what kind of, I don't know what kind of money that.
I did look at it.
Okay.
You need to adopt an ordinance, and you can adopt an ordinance, and there's no statutory limit on the amount. It has to be used for transportation uses. There's some exemptions under Wisconsin statutes for certain vehicles, so that's just going to be as a matter of law. But
So would this be the city would have a tax in addition to the county tax?
Yep, and both can have the tax, and this I found, well, the statute allows, if only the city or the county have the tax, to share their revenue. I don't know if that's happened. The county's had an ordinance, I think, since '09 or something like that.
Are you asking to put a tax on it?
It would be an addition, well, no, the city, if the city is going to do a wheel tax, it has to be done by ordinance. It's collected along with the registration.
I don't think he's asking that. He's
No,
asking
I'm not asking.
Wheel tax.
No,
aren't
my
you?
understanding, and this is where we need more research because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert in this field. My understanding is the tax is already being levied on St. Croix County residents.
Yes,
And that the
because they
city-
adopted an ordinance.
But that the city could recuperate some of that funding if we used it toward
We
public
could ask
works.
some of the money.
That, my understanding, but I'll look into it more, is that it's permissive. If the county wishes to share its revenue collected through the wheel
I mean,
tax.
like for the library.
Oh, boy.
But the city and the county can each have, it's a wheel tax ordinance.
So we can't demand it of the
No,
county.
that's, and I just
What
saw
the
this on the
county-
agenda today, so I looked at it.
Yeah, what the county is telling me is the city can request to get that money back from the county.
Yeah, they're going to go pound sand, you know?
I know what they say.
I'll look into that process
That's
more.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If we can just look into it, we don't need to make a decision tonight,
Right.
but I'd like us to get some more detailed information
Yeah.
on it and come back to it, yeah.
Okay.
It's a good idea, but
Yeah.
So rather than adopting an ordinance yourself, you're talking to try to get some of the counties.
I would like to know
Try to
what,
cap that, yeah.
I would like to know what we'd have to go through. I don't know if there's you have to apply to St. Croix County to get that. I don't know the means to do that, but I'd like us to look into it, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Discussion and possible action on change to section 106.17 of the municipal code regarding swimming pool barriers.
yeah, I brought this up. I want to refer back to public safety in regards to an and/or clause in our ordinance that you need a fence and/or the safety cover. So I'd like to move, we push it to public safety.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion and a second to move this to public safety. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on filling St. Croix EMS director position.
I'm just looking for guidance as to whether I should start the process of recruiting for a new director or just,
Can we talk about that in closed session at the time?
No.
Well,
that's why it's here.
here's my take on this, and hope I'm not talking out of school. I don't think I am. I had a conversation with Joe, and Joe had requested that we give him at least 6 months as interim director, and I would presume that he's had that similar conversation with some, if not all of you. I think that's a good idea, frankly. I think that there's a big trust factor with our EMS group and Joe, and he certainly knows the inner workings and doesn't have to, somebody else coming in obviously is going to be on the job training for a while, try to get up to speed on our systems, not to mention on the entire economic situation surrounding everything that we have going on. So I think it's a good idea.
Why don't we just make him the director and take the interim off, or can't we?
Well,
Well, I'd say give yourself the
Flexibility.
6 months, flexibility to.
and that may very well be the right thing to do,
I think giving him 6 months is a good idea. I've talked to him. He's digging in. He's working on things, and I think that it would be good for the service to have that continuity. But I don't know that we're ready to appoint him.
Without him here, we don't know after 3 months, 4 months whether it, because he will also still be doing the paramedic things. So
I guess
where he's at in 6 months too, as far as
what I would suggest then is that we say tonight, let's postpone looking for a director for however many months, 4 months, 5
He asked
months.
for 6 months, let's give him 6 months.
Well, I'd absolutely give him 6. I don't know if that means that we start looking for a director or start the process in 4 months or 5 months.
You reevaluate in 6 months.
Okay.
And if there are problems, we can always bring it up earlier than that. But
or if he has concerns that it's too much to do both.
We don't know where we're going to be in 6 months, so let's not make our decision what we're going to do then now.
Okay.
March 1st, yes, that would be 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, really.
Well, I'm just looking, September 1st would be March 1st.
It'll be pickleball season again. All right, everybody good on that?
We should probably have a motion to
Yeah, I think so.
extend it through March 1st.
Okay.
I would move to reevaluate Joe in 6 months in the position.
Of interim EMS.
Or interim.
Yep.
Second.
Got a motion, second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. I don't have anything. Anybody? Devin?
I just would like to thank the election workers, as we always do. They're kind of the unsung heroes. They work hard. It wasn't as long of a day as a presidential, but it's still a 14, 15-hour day, and they do a good job. So we'll try to get as many of them as we can in November, and we're going to have a meeting next week with Jen and I and Karen and Christy to try to map out what might work, what to try to speed things along in November as much as we can. So.
Okay, anybody else? Anything, Catherine?
No.
All right, discussion and possible action on convening into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C, compensation for the interim EMS director, and B, pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85 sub 1 sub E, negotiation of a development agreement between the City of Hudson and FLAS LLC and Valley Cartage Company, Inc., 721 First Street.
Move to go into closed session.
Second. Got a motion and second to go into closed session. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Bazile?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Atkins?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. We're going into closed session. We will go across the hall so people don't have to vacate here if they don't want. And we will be back. All right, we are back in open session. TV's up. We got the sound. Okay. Let's see. Discussion on any possible action on items discussed in closed session. Let's do the first one, A, Resolution 11-18, resolution of the City of Hudson, Wisconsin, approving a development agreement with Flaz LLC and Valley Cartage Company, Inc.
Move to suspend the rules.
Got a motion to suspend. Motion is second. Roll call.
Morissette?
Yes.
Zazil?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Atkins Haggett?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Motion's approved. We are now in, our rules have been suspended.
Move to adopt resolution 11-18.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Item B, interim EMS director compensation.
The council's potential motion will be to pay the interim EMS director at the beginning wage rate on our established wage scale, and then to pay overtime per the direction of our labor attorney.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and second for approval. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Good job, everybody.